Hey guys, we are going to take a look here. This is going to be a bonus video for my Building Post series. I had put up a really quick video of a replay that I had for this. How do I explain this? This is going to be a long story, but I'll try and abbreviate. So, I had built the blue and white post deck. I had tried to go creative and built a deck focused on aggro and level up mechanic. Didn't quite work the way I wanted. The review video I said that I was not happy, and if you did try and do blue-white, you should try and build it in a more traditional is-it post kind of way. So, I was playing around with an idea after being upset about this, and I had come up with a deck that I'm going to show you here in a second, and it worked a lot better, and I had this nice replay that I wanted to throw up, included into my article. Definitely go check it out if you haven't. This is going to be probably seen afterwards, but where I was looking at the Soulbound mechanic and talking about cards in AVR during its release. And one of the cards that was kind of the focus of this deck was Ghostly Flicker. So it kind of tied in. I threw it up as my bonus video and said, hey, if you want to see what this deck list looked like, let me know and I'll make this video, the video I am making now. So this is the bonus video of my blue-white post control deck. Now, this deck might drive some people nuts. This deck is ridiculous in every way, and that's kind of why I enjoyed it. It may not be, competitive level, but it's a lot of fun. It kind of brings in a whole bunch of different mechanics that we've become familiar with when it comes to these post decks. So I tried to break it down for you. I do apologize. I'm going to have to do a bit of scrolling, but hopefully it's still something you can see. Now, here we're going to start. We obviously bringing in our full set of posts. You're getting your 4 cloud posts and 4 glimmer posts, and that's going to be your absolute, focus for this deck. Now, I did learn some of my lessons from having built so many post decks at this point in time, and I kind of am starting to get to that point where I really have a decent understanding of how to approach building a post deck. I've got posts coming out my ears because I'm so familiar. I mean, I've seen a whole bunch of different attempts. Is it post, as we know, has so many different styles, and I'm starting to really get a concept of what works and what doesn't work. So here's the basic land base. Not going to talk about that much. I decided to not bring in any of the terramorphic expanses that you see occasionally. They're okay, it helps you get colors, but it really slows you down. I mean, you are running cloud posts, which come into play tapped anyways, so when you have to use a terramorphic expanse to fetch out a basic land, you're slowing yourself down even more. So I didn't want to go with that. At the same time, because I am running blue, it means that I am not going to be running any of the Ravnica dual lands that we get in Pauper. Now, I know there are some decks. Dimir does it occasionally, probably more so than Is It Post, but both versions have been competitive and run a single copy of it. The point is to bounce Glimmer Post, but again, I didn't want the tapped land, and more importantly, I talked a couple times about how Capsize here, if you're running Capsize, you don't need that land in your deck. But more importantly, another reason we don't need it is I'm going to be running 2 copies of Ghostly Flicker, which if you see, allows you to basically blink lands. So no longer do I need to play that, in Dimir Aqueduct or whatever, to bounce the Glimmer Post and play it on the next turn. Ghostly Flicker allows me the opportunity to get that life gain off of a replayed Glimmer Post immediately. And immediate gratification is so much better than having to wait an additional turn. That additional turn that you have to wait might cost you the game. You might not have enough time available to you to make that play, to get that Glimmer Post back down. So getting that immediate gratification is going to be better, and it's going to shore up our mana base a little better by fixing our colors. This deck does have a lot of colorless land available to it, and you always siphon that out through prisms, but having these available basic lands is going to definitely help you out. Another thing that I kind of stole from Is It Post is the Bog. Now, the Bog allows you an opportunity to remove all cards from your opponent's graveyard. Now, this is something that a couple Is It decks have run recently. Dimir always runs it, and it's something that's brought in kind of for the mirror. Mostly during the mirror is what you get where this is a problem. But it can also, especially in this deck, and I'll explain in a second, have use against Storm. So usually when you're playing the post matchup, you're going to be seeing stuff like Mystical Teachings and flashback cards in the graveyard, occasionally a Grim Harvest like is here, and these are cards that are going to be trouble, but it has other uses as well. Even actually in, say a Delver or a mono blue list that's running accumulated knowledge, being able to remove those accumulated knowledges means that your opponent is going to be able to draw less cards. They're starting to become a little bit more of a focus. It's not really intense in Pauper, but if you look at competitive decks, there's really starting to be a little more of a focus on graveyard removal. It really cuts back on the reanimation. Mono black gets animation. It'll hurt the tortured decks that have occasionally seen play. It hurts the flashback that we get off this. And there's a lot of stuff where getting, in Storm, stuff where having stuff in the graveyard makes your spell more powerful. Now this card becomes better in this matchup because we do, again, Ghostly Flicker allows us the opportunity to target a land. So that means in response to your opponent is trying to Storm, he casts his Rights, you flicker the Bog to remove his graveyard, all of a sudden he's getting way less mana off that Rights than he needed, and he may not be able to Storm. It's not a guaranteed, but things like that, being able to have this flicker in the deck is really important because it's giving you an opportunity to make plays like that. So this is, where I'm going to start here is the Ghostly Flickers. I'm running 2 copies. I really debated going back and forth. If you up the copies, you would run 3, definitely not 4. 4 is overkill. I still felt that 3 was kind of overkill. If you take a look at that video, it's really short. I do apologize. It's like 2 minutes because the replay didn't save, so I couldn't commentate on it really. When it was replaying, and my mic, I didn't have it on me, and it was just this whole mess. So there's no sound, and it's just me hitting play and you watching it. So it goes really fast, but you can see the interactions between Ghostly Flicker and Mnemonic Wall. Now this is something during the spoiler that I was really looking forward to. I think there's a lot of power in it. There was, and I apologize, I can't remember the screen name for the player, but there was a player using Dimir Aqueduct, the Dimir Post deck, and focused on this interaction between Mnemonic Wall and Ghostly Flicker, and it also has an abusive use with Chittering Rats was his real focus for it. What you do with the Ghostly Flicker is you can use it to blink 2 permanents. Now, if one of those permanents is the Mnemonic Wall, the wall, when it comes into play again after being blinked, is going to re-trigger. So you cast Ghostly Flicker targeting the wall, your Ghostly Flicker goes to the graveyard, and the wall's ability goes on the stack. Now you use that ability to target the Ghostly Flicker, and you get it right back in your hand. So basically, between these 2 cards, if you use Ghostly Flicker to target the wall, you get to blink a permanent every turn for free, as long as the combo is not interrupted. So what he did in his Dimir deck, and I had tried this as well and was unsuccessful, he actually made it work, is he uses Mnemonic Wall in combination with Chittering Rats. So what happens is during your opponent's draw step, you use Ghostly Flicker targeting a rat that is in play and the wall that is in play, and that blinks your rat. It makes your opponent have to put a card back on top of his library, and then he's basically skipping his draw step. It's not a permanent thing. There are ways to get around it, but it's definitely a very powerful move. What I really liked it for in this deck in specific was Glimmer Post. This is the real abusive thing. I said you can blink a permanent every turn for free. So every turn I can now blink Glimmer Post and gain that life. Say I have 4 lands in play. That means every life I'm gaining 4 lands as long as I have the mana available and the wall in play. I'm gaining 4 life every turn. It gets more abusive in the mirror match, which was the example video I had put up earlier, and I wanted kind of other interactions for it. Now, if you have, and this is fantastic as well, you can use it on the Muldrifters. Muldrifter is a staple in all decks. All the Dimir posts, the Izzet posts, they are all run Muldrifters. So, again, sticking to kind of the real hard basics of building these decks, I brought in a full set of the Drifters. Now, Ghostly Flicker with the wall allows you to draw 2 cards every turn for the cost of 3. The only conditions are you have to have both of these in play and the spell has to resolve. So, you get this great thing, you're drawing 2 extra cards every turn off the Muldrifter being in play. That's really a great thing to do. People will use Capsize to bounce their Muldrifters to get the extra play. Temporal Fissure, will use their own Temporal Fissure Storm on their Muldrifter to get extra draw. So Ghostly Flicker gives us that combo. Now, because we were playing white, I also brought in Aven Riftwatcher. One of the focuses I was going with the deck, like I said, is the Ghostly Flickers. So, it's the ability of that to bounce the Glimmer Post so many times, which gains you a lot of life. But at the same time, I figure we can bring in the Rift Watcher. Now, this is a great card. It doesn't last forever. It does go away. But the fact that it goes away is going to keep generating your life, which is kind of the focus of Izzet Post when it came out. The focus is you gain a whole bunch of life. You basically stall out the game until you can find a win condition. So this is just going to help you, in addition to the Glimmer Posts, gain a whole bunch of life. Ghostly Flicker is going to give you an ability to not only gain an abusive amount of life off of Rift Watcher every time it resolves, but if you are comboing it with the wall, that means your Rift Watcher is never going to die until the combo is interrupted. Every time the Rift Watcher is blinked, the vanishing counters on it reset. So you can do this and every turn get this going so your Rift Watcher just isn't dying. It'll stay on the table. Now this is just some generic ideas I'm going to throw out to you. There's a whole bunch of other things you can do with this. You can attack and then blink to untap and block. All kinds of crazy things that can be done with Blink. It's a great mechanic. I've had a lot of fun with it in the past, and I really kind of love the fact that Ghostly Flicker has given us all these opportunities. The only thing that I guess is probably a good thing as far as balance is concerned is that it only will bounce artifacts, creatures, and lands, so you can't really abuse it with Oblivion Ring. There's a deck I talk about in my UG Soulbound article where it's a UW Blink, and they basically use creatures to blink. They blink creatures and use it to return these removal enchantments so that they become permanent removal. I won't go into much detail about it, but I'm just going to throw it out there as a great thing that can be done, and unfortunately Ghostly Flicker doesn't target it. But I think in the end that's a good thing. Counterbalances things out a bit more. Okay, so we covered the Ghostly Flickers, we kind of covered our mana base and why I made the choices, we covered the rest of our creatures. An odd choice here is I did not include the Crushers. The Crusher is something that I have said forever, and I stand by the fact that it is the best creature for any post deck because it's powerful, maybe the most powerful creature that you can have. As far as just power itself, not, I know there's a lot of interactions and stuff, but definitely the biggest creature, easiest to play, causes, big issues with the Annihilator ability. But I am leaving it out. There are a lot of Izzet decks that do leave it out because they want that extra couple card spots for other stuff. And in this case, I really wanted a great package full of just the usual big pieces. Now, bringing in Condescend, that is something you can also bring in. I think Power Leak is the other one that allows you to tap out your opponent. But Condescend is one of those things that is fantastic. It's one of those cards that didn't see a lot of play because of the fact that it is an X blue spell, and that gave your opponent opportunities to get around it. But when we were introduced to this new 8-post combo, it gives us this opportunity. It makes Condescend greater. I've talked this all to death, but Condescend is really a staple card that can be used now that we have all this extra mana. So I went to the traditional sense and went with this. I chose these over the Power Sync, and I apologize if that's not the card that I mean, but I went with it because it has that Scry ability. One of the big focuses of Izzet Post, like I said, is stall until you can dig deep enough through your deck to find a win condition. Scry is an ability that allows us to do that. You're not directly drawing cards, but you get to look at the cards, you get to rearrange the cards, and it's helping you dig. Also, to help us dig out cards, I am bringing in a single copy of Mysteries of the Deep. This is something that you see in a lot of the Izzet Post decks that run a large toolbox of single cards to go with the mystical teachings. And so I am doing that as well. I'm bringing in Mysteries of the Deep. It's a heavy draw card. It does come at a heavy cost, but that is something that is more manageable because we are running the posts. Whilst we're also bringing in the mystical teachings, like I said, that's kind of the reason to go with a toolbox like this, that all these singles and doubles of cards, is because mystical teachings will give us an opportunity to fetch those. Mystical teachings is great for finding the ghostly flickers. It's great for finding all of these little pieces that you may need, and again, helping us dig through the deck until we find what we want. It's great. Definitely no need to run more than 2 copies of this card in the deck because it does have that flashback ability for 5 and a black. Now, just a quick side note, that is also a great reason to run the bogs. Even if you're running Izzet Post, you might want to consider bringing a bog in, a singleton bog into your deck because it gives you an ability to flash that back without having to siphon mana through a prophetic prism. Some people will sideboard in Artifact Hate against Is It Post or any of the post decks to get rid of prisms and kind of screw your mana base. It's more important in decks that aren't running red already for the burn spell, but just something to keep in mind. So, we're card draw, right? We're doing that with the Mysteries of the Deep. We brought in Mystical Teachings to help us dig further through our deck. And I'm bringing in a full set of the Prophetic Prisms. The color, you'll see in a second why the color changing is very important to me, but even more important than that is the color changing, or I'm sorry, God, I just said that. Even more important than that is the fact that it draws a single card. Again, digging through your deck, finding what you need. Capsize, brought in as a singleton. There's all kinds of good reasons. Like I said, it's a great singleton card. Every post deck runs a single copy of it, and it works great having the 2 flickers because it gives us more options for the bounce. Another thing that I brought into this deck, which I have left out of a lot of recent ones, and I'm starting to realize has a lot more power to it than I originally kind of accepted, is Expedition Map. This card allows you to not only find these pieces of your post here, it'll help you find the Glimmer Post if you need life, it'll help you find Cloud Post if you need mana, but that will also let you find this bog, this singleton bog, which could be really critical. If you build up your mana really fast in usual games, you get a map and you're like, okay, it's the mid game, the map is not really great at this point in time. Sure, I can get more Cloud Posts, but that's fine. I don't need any more mana. It's just basically thinning your deck, and thinning your deck is great. Don't get me wrong, but having the ability to use this map in like the mid to late game to get a bog and really turn the tide of things is going to be fantastic. It's not necessarily going to work that way every time, but just being able to having the option in general to do this, to make that play, is what makes it great. So the Expedition Map is definitely something I had underestimated here at many points in time. So I decided I'm going old school. I'm sticking to the basics of this post control format. I'm bringing in Expedition Map. That is something I'm conceding now that it is definitely a card that I underestimated, but at the same time, I don't think I would run a full 4 for this card. 3 is plenty. You can get mana fixing off the prisms. There's an okay amount of card draw in this deck, but it's just 4. It seems overkill. 3 seems the perfect number for me. That's my opinion. You can feel free to disagree, but I feel it's a good round number. So, dealing with the Storm matchup, bringing Echoing Truth, obviously, also can help with green-white tokens if you do actually find yourself playing that. But Echoing Truth is almost a must-have main deck. Definitely at least a sideboard option. I didn't actually, now that I consider it, I didn't build a sideboard for this because I did not consider it would work that well when I had first built it, but turned out it worked better than I had expected. So definitely maybe a third copy in the sideboard of Echoing Truth, but it's like a must-have because you will come against Storm. Even in the casual room, people think it's okay to run Storm and agree to disagree, but that allows you to return all the Goblin tokens and really survive that Storm. So also bringing in a little extra counterspell here, Prohibit, running 2 copies of it. I think it's important in this deck to not run straight counterspell. I've talked often about how the double blue mana cost can be a bit troublesome, especially in a deck like this where you're running so much colorless mana, and a couple options. It's basically 3 colors having that bog in there. So having a counterspell that allows you to pay colorless mana is great. Now, what makes Prohibit even more important than something like, say, Mana Leak is the fact that Mana Leak in the mid to late game is going to be completely useless to you when it comes to probably the other post matchups and just most decks. It's gonna be like, oh well, they have 3 mana, so this card is gonna be dead in my hand for most of the game. Now, Prohibit does have limitations to it. At most, it can only counter a spell with a converted mana cost of 4 or less, but if you look at just cards used in competitive Pauper as a whole, that covers a majority of the cards that are out there, the majority of plays your opponents will make, and being able to kick that for 2 colorless makes this all the better. It means in order to counter something with a converted mana cost of 4 or less, all you need is 1 blue, and the rest of the mana can be any color that you have available to you. So it's definitely a great card to have here. I'm going to kind of ignore these three for a second, but last thing I brought in is a full set of Oblivion Rings. It's not a great removal option. Maybe a better choice here would be something like Exile, which I believe is instant as well, and so you could fetch that out with Mystical Teachings. But at the same time, I wanted it to be Oblivion Ring because Oblivion Ring allows us that opportunity, as you see here, to remove permanents. Um, Things like the Bone Splitters you'll come up against a lot when it comes to, especially mono white aggro. There's not, I hate to say it, there's not a lot of other options that I want to remove with it. If you come to a mirror matchup, maybe you want to remove a Prism. Um, there's a couple enchantments you'll come across here and there. Rancor maybe, Pestilence if you happen to play that deck. But I like having, again, the ability, it's not necessarily going to be useful every time, but just having the ability to remove a card, any card, any non-land card is really a powerful thing. I think it has a lot of power in the matchup against, the matchup against Delver Blue or Is It Post, other post decks, because unless they're running green, they're not really going to have direct enchantment removal. Any way they're going to get rid of it is going to have to be counterspell. So once it hits the table, it stays on the table. I think it's a pretty good option, but you can feel free to cut it down to 3 or 2 and make other changes. This is just what I had thrown together, what had worked for me. So this left me with 3 spots, and I kind of went an odd route with these 3 spots. A lot of times in the Is It Post deck, we're going to keep going back to that because it is kind of the standard for post control. They bring in stuff like Karavic's Torch or Rolling Thunder in order to do that X damage to your opponent. That's the win condition. They are sitting there and stall out until you reach a point in time where you have an opportunity to safely play the X burn spell and finish off your opponent. This can be done a lot of the times with Karavic's Torch or Rolling Thunder, as I said. Rolling Thunder is not a great option for this deck because it does have the double red cost. Karavic's Torch allows us to do 1 single red. This is why, if you look at the Dimir Post deck, if they have a burn spell in it, it is going to be Karavic's Torch because it can be done with the 1 red. So I knew that was going to come in. This left me with 2 spots. Grim Harvest is something that I have seen. I think I've seen it once in Is It Post. It's seen often when it comes to the Dimir Post decks, but it's a great option for returning stuff. The creature base here, you have the Rift Watcher is going to die. Even if your opponent does not kill it, odds are that it's going to die. The Muldrifters, you may find yourself in an early game where you play it for the evoke cost because you would rather have the 2-card draw over the fact that it's going to sit in your hand for a couple more turns until you have 5 mana. So come to the mid game, when you get that Grim Harvest finally, you have the opportunity to return that Muldrifter and draw more cards. The other great thing about Grim Harvest, definitely one of the best, I'm gonna go there, it's the best return spell for generic creature return. You get Unearth, which is great, but it's got a specific, it's got that, it holds you back because it resorts to 3 converted mana cost. Now Grim Harvest allows you to do anything, and more importantly, it's got this recover ability. Recover, for those who don't know, is when you have a creature die. If Grim Harvest is in my graveyard, I can pay that recover cost and get the Grim Harvest back. This allows you to be, and you have to be very careful with how you play, and it takes some smart play to make it really work in your favor. But this allows you the opportunity to let creatures die, to bring creatures back, and just keep cycling it. The more important thing with this card is the fact that it is an instant, so that allows us to search it up with Mystical Teachings. Now this left me with 1 spot, and I had debated bringing in a 3rd wall. I had debated bringing in a 3rd Ghostly Flicker, a 4th Expedition map. All of these choices were available to me. But what I really wanted, you look at what makes Is It Post strong, and sure, it's got counterspells, but that's not really what controls the board. If you look at the decks, they may have 5 counterspells total in a 60-card deck, and that's nothing. So while you may feel that the counter pressure is oppressive when you're playing against it, there's really something else going on there that is controlling the game. What that ends up being is the lightning bolts, the flame slash, the creature control, the burn spells that allows them to do that. So I wanted to find a little more creature control. As it sits now, an Izzet Post deck could very easily run 4 copies of Lightning Bolt and 4 copies of Flame Slash, and that's 8 burn spells. That is 8 opportunities to remove creatures. Now, what I have available to me is 4 Oblivion Rings and 2 Echoing Truths. That means I have 6 opportunities available to me in comparison to 8 for creature removal, and only 4 of those 6 are permanent. And even those that permanent, that's in quotes. You can't see it. I'm doing a little air quotes here because that permanent removal is subject to the fact that your opponent cannot destroy target enchantment. That's the one condition that will make it permanent. So I really felt that this deck needed actually more creature control. The bounce was great, but Ghostly Flicker only targets my things. It's not a removal spell, it's just a blink. I needed something else. So I had this wild, crazy, nuts idea to bring in a single copy of Resounding Silence. Resounding Silence was part of a cycle of cards that we had gotten during this block, this set, and it's got a rather heavy cost for a basic ability of exile target attacking creature. But what this card actually gains is this, the best thing for these cards, this set of cards. Resounding Thunder was another one, and I built a whole deck around it. And the whole point is you want to get to the point where you have that 8 mana available that you can cycle the card. Because when you cycle the card, it becomes that much better. It's a heavy cost for the ability, but if you look at this, if I cycle it, I'm drawing a card, and I also have the ability to exile up to 2 target attacking creatures. Now, the great part of that is that it is up to 2. This means you have the ability to remove a single attacking creature. If it said remove 2 attacking creatures, then you would be screwed and could only use it if your opponent attacked with 2, and it would be worse. But the fact that you have that up to 2 in there allows you to make this card playable. Now, the odd thing about this is, okay, we're running blue, we're running white. That's not the problem. The problem is that 1 green mana. But you know what? We're running a full set of Prophetic Prism. This is why I had said that the color change is one of the best, that's the most important thing to me, because that ability to change that color and get me that green mana will allow me to use Resounding Silence. Now, I had done another example game, and same situation, did not record, had to get it out of the room, so it was going to disappear, and after I spent all the time commentating and recording it, something happened, it didn't save, and I was heartbroken because it was the perfect game. It was against another post deck. My opponent had 2 Crushers coming my way, and I had Resounding Silence, and was able to cycle it, remove the 2 Crushers, and I had 2 Mnemonic Walls on the table. This meant that I could cast, we talked about the interaction with Ghostly Flicker. Mnemonic Wall allows you to blink another permanent for that cost and get the Ghostly Flicker back. So having both walls in play at the same time allows you to Ghostly Flicker both walls. You use one wall to return the Ghostly Flicker, and the other wall to return any other cards you needed from your graveyard. So I was doing this every turn. I was getting back Resounding Silence. I was getting back Mysteries of the Deep. I was getting back all these spells to keep this going off of these 2 walls. And eventually it got to a point where my opponent kept trying to get me with Crushers, and I was able to blink the wall. I used the torch to deal 8 damage to a Crusher at one point in time, and then I was able to blink the wall to get the torch back. It was just the perfect game. Excuse me, joking over here. Just the perfect game to see this interaction, not just between the Ghostly Flicker and the Mnemonic Walls, but just also the interactions between Resounding Silence. I had gone through most of my deck, and I was absolutely heartbroken that I could not get this game saved. But so I think I covered everything here. This is the deck list that I used for that blue-white post deck. Definitely, like I said in the level up video, the way to go if you're doing blue-white post is a more serious control base. You've seen a lot of this. Let me scroll down for a little while I finish talking here so that you can see this if you're trying to copy this deck list. So, sticking to that basic control base, using the expedition maps to get your cards, using the prisms, using the card draw, the counter spells, and stalling for time until you get to that point where you can you can get that win condition that you need to win this game. So This is the bonus post video. I want to give a quick update. Depending when you're watching this video, this may be irrelevant, but if you're watching this as it goes up, I had 2 articles are submitted. I'm not sure when, if they will be posted, but we'll see how that all works out, and I'll keep the competitive thing updated there. But just a bit on the posts, I am going away for a week here, but after that, I am going to be back. I have a lot of free time in July. I've been really busy this month, but I have a lot of free time come July, so I am going to be getting up at least one more border post video, probably two, and you can expect to probably see another if you catched good English, if you caught my other mini series on puremtgo.com, building mechanics on a budget. There will be another one of those coming up soon. I got about half the videos recorded. I've got half the article done. It's getting there. It'll be out definitely. So keep an eye out for these things. Check out my article every week, and I hope you enjoyed.